What if the answers you've been searching for were already inside you? You just needed the right questions to dig them out. If you've been about to make a change for way too long, circling the same decision and researching every angle until the window closes, busy but really not quite moving, then this episode is speaking directly to you. Welcome to episode 98 of our Back to Life podcast. I'm your host, Danny Bader, and our guest today is Angela Conicelli. She's the founder of Work of Life, an MBA-trained life and leadership coach out of Wilmington, North Carolina. And Angela has worked everywhere from hotel lobbies to courtrooms to boardrooms. And she uses that range to coach the whole human, not just the job title. So stick around. You might just hear yourself in this one, especially if you've ever struggled with that whole work-life balance thing. Here we go with Angela.
Welcome to the Back to Life podcast with your host, Danny Bader. In every episode, you'll hear real stories about real transformations from real life. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Angela, and welcome to our Back to Life podcast.
Hey, Danny. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this conversation as this whole work-life thing in the intro when I introduced you. I called it the work-life thing. Has been of interest to me for a long, long time. So tell us a little bit. Your business is Work of Life, and that's kind of a bold name. So it seems like you made a distinction to not separate work and life and all that kind of stuff. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Work of Life, the meaning behind it is sort of that work or life more is a work of art, essentially. So that's sort of the play on words there. But I've always had this feeling that oftentimes we just tend to separate work and life as if they're these two opposing forces. And the way that I see it really is that life is this all-encompassing thing, and work is a part of that. Yeah. And work has to be integrated into the rest of your life. It has to fit with your values and where you're headed in life and give you the day-to-day that matters to you. So I've always thought it was really important not to try and balance these two separate things, but really find some level of integration.
Yeah, that sounds good. So what would you say to somebody that tries to balance that? Because I have my thoughts around that too. You know, I'm out of balance. Is there ever that proverbial balance between our focus on career and our focus on everything outside of career?
You know, I think that there is something to finding balance in your life. Like I'm not opposed to the idea of balance and feeling at ease and feeling that things are sort of balanced and the scale isn't tipped to one direction or the other. I think what the problem that I have with work-life balance is that idea that, you know, they're on two separate sides and they have to be even all the time. I think that the way that I've heard it described best, that I could get on board with the most, I would say, is I was listening to a talk once and I heard this woman talk about work-life rhythm. And I liked that a lot more. She was talking about how, you know, there are some times in your life where, you're going to be at work a little bit longer, or you're going to be a little bit more, you know, involved in a project or something. And then there are going to be other times, maybe like right now it's summertime, my kids go back to school next week. And, you know, we've really leaned into a slower pace and spending more time together as a family. So, you know, the quote unquote life part or family, that piece of our overall life is taking, you know, the driver's seat right now. So, but they work together. There's a harmony, there's a rhythm to it, as opposed to these balanced scales.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I kind of think the same way with that. What would you say to somebody, or what would you say to your clients when they go, I can't get my head around that. I need to separate them. I understand what you're saying, Angela, about this rhythm thing, but I can't. I'm either focused here with the kids in the house and my husband or partner or whatever, or I'm focused on, you know, my work and my projects. How do you kind of coach somebody to that new awareness, new mindset?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question and a fair one. I think a lot of people, you know, our brains all work differently, and some people do tend to compartmentalize, and that works for them, being able to really, when they're at work, focusing on work. And I don't think that there is anything wrong with that necessarily if they have to create, you know, some sort of boundaries. I think boundaries are great and actually can help create that balance. So I think,
Hmm.
I really shy away from binary thinking. And I do think we can work with someone's brain. And if, again, creating boundaries or compartmentalizing work while you're at work is
Hmm.
not a bad thing necessarily. It's just if those boundaries start to blur and you're bringing work home every day and now things really
Hmm.
are feeling to you out of balance, then that's where there tends to be a problem and people feel, you know, they can sense that something's wrong.
Yeah, and they just can't turn it off, they say, right? I'm home
Right.
physically, but I'm not really home because I'm still thinking about work and all those things and the client, the
Right.
contract that we might not renew, and all
Yeah.
those kind of things. You've had a very a diverse career in
Yeah.
hospitality, higher ed, some legal, and all. How did those different experiences in different kind of careers help
Hmm.
you understand this versus if somebody was on a single track? I'm a teacher for 30 years. I'm a pharmaceutical sales rep for 30 years. I'm a nurse, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had what I call my squiggly line career. It's been kind of all over the place. And it's been a real benefit to me, I think, because what I've noticed or the thread that has run through all of my experiences is that
Hmm.
organizations are just groups of people, and they're groups of people trying to make a living and trying to accomplish something together. And
Hmm.
that's what they all are. It doesn't matter as much what industry you're in or what you're selling, or what your expertise is. Like all of that stuff
Hmm.
matters, but at the end of the day, if you really boil it down,
Hmm.
that's what organizations are. And so I like to
Yeah.
focus on the people, and what's going on, what dynamics are at play. And having a diverse background has also helped me build a lot of confidence in, I can learn a lot of different skills in a lot of different industries, and sharing those stories has actually helped a lot of my clients say, yeah, I have been in an industry for 20 years, but maybe I could do something else. You've done it. Maybe I can do something different too.
Yeah.
I think that's important, just to like be open to that possibility. And then
Right.
honestly, the last thing is that it's helped me see that all of these really, important quote unquote people, or people that you are so impressed by, are still people at the end of the day. And
Oh
their
my
home
gosh.
life,
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
dynamics, their fears are all at play, no matter what
Sure.
industry you're in. That's just what it is.
Yeah, I agree. Whether they're an all-star baseball player or NFL quarterback or
Yeah.
CEO, it's the same way. It took me a long time because oftentimes, as you're growing up, I think you're kind of impressed by titles and
Yeah.
the positions that people have and the material wealth that comes with a lot of that. And then you get to the point where sometimes you get with these people. I'm always amazed after I do a keynote or something. Some people in these larger, more important roles or whatever,
Mhm.
whatever, will come up and just be very vulnerable, in terms of what they're struggling with. So I
Yeah.
think that's pretty cool. Um, what do you say to somebody around balance who, like, how much does this fulfillment in life, I would call it, right?
Yeah.
So my life is fulfilling. I've got good relationships. I've got my health. I've got my finances. I've got my career. And, fulfillment means I'm getting out of life what I want. I don't have it,
Hmm.
maybe, but I'm getting it. I'm moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
So, how much of that ties into, people that may be in the wrong job because the money's great, the benefits are great, but the work that they do doesn't necessarily stir their soul, so to speak. What do you think
Yeah.
about all that?
Yeah, I think it's tricky because, all of it matters, right? Like we can't pretend that money doesn't matter at all, or,
Yeah,
being able to have benefits, especially if you have a family. And I mean, all of that does matter. And I understand
sure.
why people stay in careers for those things. I think
Mhm.
for me, again, it's never, binary. It's not, you can only have one or the other. And if something is stirring inside of you where you're like, oh, I want this safety and security of the money and, the benefits and the situation that I have,
Mhm.
and there's something off, to me, that's worth exploring, because I
Yeah.
really find that most people don't really give themselves the permission to explore the
Mhm.
possibilities in their life. It doesn't
Right.
have to be one or the other. Maybe you can have something, that pays you what you want to make and that supports your family in the way that you need, and you're doing work that you really enjoy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think
No, I
it
love
goes
that.
to the, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Let's go a little deeper on that now. So,
Yeah,
because I've been there before in life. I
sure.
used to work for a
Same.
credit card company, MBNA, great company, but just
Hmm.
not the best fit for Danny Bader. And then
Sure.
at some point, I moved over into the education department, so I was doing workshops, and that was better. But early on, I was in customer service, and I was in some strategy roles and all. And I was there because my wife was a nurse, and I had we had kids and benefits and everything else. How do you get somebody who says, no, you know what? I've got to stay here. This is
Hmm.
good financially. It's good benefit wise. How do you help them kind of just see it differently so it's just not like that drudgery of oh my God, I got the Sunday scaries because I got to go back to that place for 5 days or something?
Oh, yes, the Sunday scaries. You know, the thing is if somebody chooses to stay in that career, that's okay too.
Yeah.
And that's what I try and empower people with is if the most important thing for you right now, and at like a lot of coaches, I do try and walk people through values exercises and try and get aligned on what are
Sure.
you value in life, where are you headed, right? That's
Yeah.
really important. And if what you're doing is completely misaligned with that, then we really do need to investigate further. But I
Yeah.
also find that there's a lot of power in just deciding and saying, you
Hmm.
know what, this job is what I need right now for my
Hmm.
family so that I
Hmm.
can have the pieces of my life that feel fulfilling. That this
Hmm.
job is allowing me to do that.
Sure.
Sometimes just deciding that and moving
Yeah.
forward can lift a huge weight because a lot of times people are walking around saying, "Oh, I should be doing something else," or "Oh, I have to go find my passion and my purpose and
Yeah.
all of that."
Yeah.
And maybe your passion and purpose is to be able to come home and spend time with your family, and the job that you currently have allows you to do that, and that's
Yeah.
okay right now, you
Yeah, I
know?
think that's a good. Oh, I do know. Yeah, that's a great point you make there. It's just how do you kind of reframe it for
Hmm.
people? And I always say, you've got two questions: what's going on in my life? So you get to the details. Oh, well, I'm in this job right now. I really don't like it. It kind of sucks, and the benefits are good. The money's good. So that's
Yeah.
what's going on. Then the question is, what are you saying to yourself about it? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And
Yeah. What's the
that's where you
story?
have a lot of power to, as you said, just to reframe it. And I think what you touched on there for anybody listening, when I you and I both work with people where there's burnout, right?
Yep, sure.
I think burnout often comes from we're just so focused on the job. And then when we're outside of the job, we're not engaged in those values that creativity and spending time with family and exercise and spending time in nature, all those things that recharge us. We're at work, and then when we're not at work, we're bitching about work. So
Yep.
being at work takes our energy, and then bitching about it takes our energy. And I'm like, people say that's what they say. I need to find
100%.
my purpose, Danny. Can you help me? And I'm like, no. And they're like, what? I thought you could help. I said, number one, you don't need to find it. It's not lost. And then
Right.
like you, I just say, listen, go online and search human values and come up with a list of 50 or
Yep.
60 and pick the top 7 or 8 for you. And just
Hmm.
say, okay, what number, score them, right? You and I do this, 1 through 10. And the ones that are lower than they need to be, five, sixes, what's the action you can begin? What's getting in the way? What's the action you can begin to take? It's a real powerful exercise. So anybody listening, I would encourage them to do that because then they say, well, what about balance? I said, balance is when you have a list of your values and the numbers that you scored them are all good.
Yeah.
If you're good
Yeah.
with them, if you're good with them, that's balance. And you go, yeah, but this is a 7. And you might say, yeah, but it needs to be a 7 right now because work is a 9. I'm really focused on it. And I'm going to get a big fat bonus at the end of the year, and then
Sure.
I can bring this number 7 up a little bit more. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's all about the right questions, right?
It really is. It's about the right questions, and it's so much about how you frame things. To your point, the stories we tell
Hmm.
ourselves, like what are you saying about
Hmm.
certain things?
Hmm.
And, when you're talking about, being so busy at work and then coming home and bitching about work and that taking
Hmm.
so much energy, something that comes to mind for me too, that I think is really useful is also taking those values into work. Like even I've been at jobs where I was like, this is not my forever thing. I'm here for a reason
Right.
and a season, and I'm going to leverage it for that purpose. And
Hmm.
I'm going to bring myself into that organization. So for me, something that's important is fun.
Yeah.
I want to have fun. I want to be able to laugh with my coworkers. I want to be able to solve problems and do it with a smile on and like enjoy myself and joke around. Like that's
Yeah.
important to me. And so I bring that energy into work, even if it's not, even if I know this is not my forever place, which was, a lot of my work situation. Like I said, I've had this squiggly line career. I knew that not
Oh
all of
yeah,
them were
no,
going
it's
to be
great.
forever.
Yeah, I think it's great. And that's so important. I was just last week I was down at the Gaylord Palms Resort and Convention Center, and Caleb, a friend of mine who runs the events team down there,
Yeah.
he's a big proponent of that. And they had a meeting and they were all dressed up, GOAT, greatest of all time. So Dolly Parton was there, and
Oh my gosh.
oh my gosh, yeah. Well, not the real Dolly Parton, but everybody's dressed up like the goats, right?
Yeah.
Baseball players and
Yeah.
musicians. Lady Gaga was there. I got a picture with Gaga. But it's so important. So how do you work with leaders that
Hmm.
still have the mindset like, nah, I don't want to get involved in the personal life, and I don't really want to do the values exercises. They just got to come to work, kind of do the job, and they got 2 days working from home, so that's pretty good. How do you work with leaders? Because I think it's really important for leaders to get the most out of their people. So you're getting engagement, and then you're
Hmm.
also getting folks that hang around and don't leave.
Right.
Have you
And
worked
that's
with
so
anybody on
common.
either side of that equation?
100%. Yeah, all the time. And it's both in coaching and in employment situations that I've been in where I'm trying to manage up to help these leaders understand what their teams need. And I think leaders that are going to stay closed minded to not allowing and inviting the fullness of your team can get
Mm,
comfortable with mediocrity, honestly. And they've got to get
yeah,
comfortable with turnover because you're not creating a space where people want to show up every day if they don't feel like they can be themselves,
right.
and they're expected to just show up, do the job, sit at the desk all day long. They're going to leave eventually. And even if they don't, they're going to be
Yeah,
unhappy. They're not going to bring their best ideas to the table. So you're
right.
asking for compliance, but you're not really getting the most out of everyone. And every organization says they want innovation. I would
Yeah,
argue that most of them actually don't. A lot of them don't because that would actually mean opening up to,
sure,
getting to know their team members and
sure.
understanding what they're great at and what they want out of life. And if
Yeah.
you walk down that path, you're going to get the best out of people.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And it's where people are, the leaders might say, well, my team's pretty productive. They're productive. And then I'll often eat it, but are they passionate?
Yeah.
Is it productive? Because I have, something called the functional fog where people are just going through the motion. And
Yep.
research says like 70-75% of people are that way.
Right.
Everything's okay, but it's just
Wow.
okay. It's just okay enough that you're not going to the next level, either
Yeah.
personally or professionally. So I think that's a great point that you make. So I'd encourage all the leaders listening right now, move a little bit over into, what really matters for people besides work. I remember I
Hmm.
had a manager at MBNA. Oh my gosh, he was the worst leader I ever had in my life. I loved, I got into education, and I loved developing, training classes and courses and workshops, and I loved, researching like how can I bring these to life through stories and statistics and everything else. And he said to me, he said, you're really great in the classroom. I mean, everybody knows that, they love it, and I'm saying this humbly because it was my passion, right? We're all good at our
Yeah.
passion. And he
Sure.
said, but I'm going to cut back your schedule a little bit because, you got to get better with analysis and Excel spreadsheets and everything else. And I was like, I almost jumped out the window. I'm like, I don't want to get
No.
better with Excel spreadsheets and everything else. And I just thought there's a leader that's just not not getting it. What are your
Not getting
strengths and how do
it.
you kind of play to them? That just popped in my mind and that was, oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
No.
that was a
Oh,
long
I
time
hate
ago.
that.
Oh
They
my
lost the plot
gosh.
on that one. There's so much power in knowing what people are good at and
Yeah.
actually applying them to those roles. It's better for business. You're going to get so much more productivity and
Oh
your
yeah.
people are going to be so much happier. And I don't
Sure.
know, it's hard for me to understand the resistance to it sometimes, but I think there's a lot of fear. It's like if I don't just, do check the boxes and do what I think I'm
Yeah.
supposed to do as a leader, there's a fear that it's not going to work out. But the research is so clear on it too,
Oh yeah.
having diversity of thought, having
Hmm.
people in their strengths, the right people on the right seats of the bus, like we're all going to
Oh
move
yeah.
forward together. And there's a lot of resistance to that.
Yeah, I remember Marcus Buckingham, maybe Strengths Finder and all that. Donald
Oh
Clifton.
yeah, Clifton Strengths Finder. Yeah,
I
I
think,
love.
yeah, I think it was Marcus Buckingham or something. He said, I remember he said, the area of your greatest opportunity is in the area of your greatest strength. So whatever
Mm,
you are really good at, go get even better at it. And,
yes,
and I thought that was really good. You had a
love it.
term here that I love, Angela. It's the gap between activity and progress.
Yeah,
And as you said that, I kind of went, "Oh, ouch! I think she's talking about me." What's
I
that
feel
all about?
attacked.
How do you coach people kind of through that gap of activity? I'm busy. I'm working hard.
Yeah.
But progress. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So that gap, I feel attacked by myself sometimes in that one because I think we can all relate that sometimes it just feels good to be busy because
Yeah.
we feel like we're doing something and that feels better than doing nothing, right? But activity really is just that. It's doing things, right? And you can do things and be on autopilot and be going through the motions and kind of convince yourself that it all matters.
Hmm.
Progress, the difference between activity to me and progress is that progress is actually the most motivating thing for humans, more than
Hmm.
compensation, more than
Hmm.
those benefits we were talking about, making
Hmm.
progress. So you can feel the energy of progress. It feels forward. There
Hmm.
is momentum. And so closing that gap to me is really going from, okay, you're doing things, but what are you doing them towards? Right?
Hmm.
Are the things that you're doing bringing you closer to your goals? Do you even know what those goals are?
Sure.
If no, then why are we wasting energy on that? Let's understand where are we headed and figure
Hmm.
out how to make steps that do give us that forward motion toward the ultimate goal that we're trying to achieve. That's
Right.
progress.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, and that's the key. If you don't have, your vision or your goals, you just think you're doing because you're knocking off a to-do list all the time.
Right. Yep.
What was one of the lowest points of your career?
Oh goodness. Let's see. Below.
I know, and
um,
you're so positive. I thought maybe she never had. You got to have like that one
I've had
point where
low.
you're like,
No,
"Oh
I've had
man,
plenty.
this is brutal. I got to get out of here. This is horrible." What was one of
Yeah.
those low points?
It's funny. I am a really positive person, and I have every workplace that I've gone into. I've really I hope this comes off as humble. I really do feel like I've
Hmm.
made an impact and I've gone in and changed things that needed to be changed and made some
Hmm.
great relationships with people. But I also tend to feel frustrated in work situations as well. So I've had several low points. And I think it's because I have this super strong belief in
Hmm.
making sure that work, quite frankly, doesn't suck. It doesn't have to suck for people.
Yeah.
And being in that space where you're trying to manage up and you're trying to coach people and you're trying to teach leaders to invite the full range of the people on your team in and getting
Hmm.
met with so much resistance has been hard. And I think the low point for me was I was at an organization that I had been asked to join. I had actually turned them down like 7 years prior. And then they reached back out to me, like, please, we have another role for you. We'd really love you on our team. Great. It was less than a year that I was there. And it was the middle of COVID, actually. And so we were remote and I had two small children. My kids were, gosh, 18 months and maybe 3 years old at the time.
Hmm.
And they had brought me in to kind of shake things up, to be a leader in the organization, to help them scale and help them grow. And that's exactly what I was trying to do.
Hmm.
Like with many organizations, sometimes people will, there's a concept called pet to threat. I don't know if you've heard of that, but where people will
Hmm.
bring someone in like me or like you who like really wants to change things and really wants to innovate and bring a new perspective and they think
Right.
they want that and you start off as like their top person and they're like that's when you're in the pet phase and then
Yes.
suddenly you start actually doing those things that they said they wanted. They said they wanted innovation, but now you're a dissenting voice and they don't like it. And now you've become a threat. So I was kind of in that situation where I was really
I
trying to push
see.
the boundaries and help us grow. And they really just wanted compliance at the end of the day. And I
Right.
remember so clearly telling the CEO, I said, I'm not going to shrink myself to make you more comfortable. I'm
Hmm.
not going to do that. And a couple weeks
Hmm.
later, I got let go in the middle
Hmm.
of COVID, which was very hard, obviously, with two small children at home.
Yeah, I'm
And I,
shocked. You told the CEO you're not going to shrink yourself to make him or her comfortable, and then
I
you're
was
let
like,
go. So
and
that
then
tells
it's
me a
like,
lot
go.
about that ego and that leadership maturity of somebody. Oh
Yep.
my gosh, that's a great line there. I want everybody to listen to that, right? Don't shrink yourself to
Right.
make somebody else comfortable. I love
And
that.
it's
That's a great
hard.
line.
I was probably shaking when I said that. It was really challenging and I was scared and we were in the middle of a pandemic and I'm providing
Hmm.
for a family and everything. But at the end of
Hmm.
the day, I walked out of that with my integrity, which
Yeah.
is one of my core values. And I was
Yeah.
like, you
Right
know
on.
what? I'm proud of myself for saying that. And
Yeah.
it worked out. So
And you should be, and you should be. Let's talk a little
thank
bit
you.
more about, beliefs, right? The people, the
Mhm.
beliefs that they have, the stories that they have, and those
Mhm.
kind of things. As a coach, you, me, we've got to help people see beliefs that are within them, develop beliefs that are within them. How do you do that? If somebody's out there and they're listening and say, "Oh, Danny and Angela, I get it, and you two are both so positive and you're so happy, and but I just got to stay in this job. I couldn't do anything else." Like, what do you do to kind of unravel some of that crappy thinking and
Yeah.
get them into some more useful thoughts, a better story?
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, there are a few things. One is when people are talking themselves out of believing in themselves and having
Mm-hmm.
that negative self-talk, one question that I ask is whose voice is that? Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times it's not their own voice. It's coming from some, past toxic work relationship,
Hmm.
maybe their upbringing. It's coming from somewhere else. And sometimes just that realization of this is actually not my voice. And
Right.
let me find my voice and start listening to
Yeah.
that can be really helpful. And
Mm.
then the other thing for me is I work really hard to make sure that people's desires are actually doable. And I want to present that. And what I mean by that is when I can encourage someone to say what they really, really want, or
Mm-hmm.
encourage someone to admit, you know what, I've been thinking about a career in this field,
Mm-hmm.
because that's very vulnerable for people. If they've been in a
Sure.
career for 20 years and they're like, actually, I want to go back to nursing school and
Yeah.
become a nurse, that's really, really vulnerable. I
Yeah.
try to have a very just like, yeah, great
Mm-hmm.
reaction because
Mm-hmm.
I think they're so scared of saying it that people are going to be like, oh my gosh, like that sounds crazy. Or like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can do it in this like fake sort of cheerleader mentality. And I'm just like, sure, yeah, lots of people become nurses. What would be the first
Yeah.
step in
Yeah,
figuring
later
that
in
out?
life, right? Yep. Nurses,
Yeah.
teachers, some of
So
those things.
100%.
Yeah.
And I
I
think
like that.
sometimes
I
that's
like that
helpful.
question. Whose voice is that? That's pretty
Hmm.
good.
Yeah.
And the other
Yeah.
thing we often ask you probably too, when was the first time that voice showed up? So
Yes.
then you can
Yeah.
kind of go back. And it's not like we're therapy, right? Coaching's all about moving people forward.
Totally.
Therapy is about going back and maybe unraveling some things. But as coaches, and those of you listening, sometimes we've got to go back, especially around your beliefs and your voices, to say, whose voice is that? When did that first show up? Because what you're going to find is you were probably influenced, and that belief was anchored by somebody who you really respected, somebody who you're afraid of, somebody in
Mhm.
authority. Something anchored that for you. And then we have a tendency to carry that on when uh, when we probably shouldn't carry it on any
Yes,
longer.
100%. Yeah, and you're right.
Yeah.
It's not the same as therapy, but it is important to go back sometimes in order
Hmm.
to go forward, to
Sure.
really understand where did this start so that people can have
Oh
that
yeah.
kind of aha moment of, oh my gosh, that isn't my voice, or that
Yeah.
happened to
Yeah.
me and now I can move forward. It doesn't have to define me. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Well, what do you say to somebody that goes, "Yeah, I get all this self-talk stuff and everything, but that's kind of like BS, man. I mean, it's I just got to figure out how to keep moving forward and get this job and make more money. And, I don't really deal too much in self-talk and all that."
Yeah. I mean, well, for one, like not everyone is ready to be coached. I'll be honest about that. I think that
Okay.
sometimes,
Yeah.
people are not in the headspace to have what is happening in their life mirrored back to them. It can be very
Hmm.
confronting to people and that
Hmm.
is true. That said, I think if someone's in that space and they're asking to be coached and then they're kind of like, nah, like I don't know, this self-talk, this doesn't really matter. I think I would just go back to, okay, well, what are your goals?
Yep.
Where are you now?
That's it.
There's a gap,
Yeah.
there's a gap. So how are we going to fill that gap? And at the end of the day, a coach is not there. I don't see my job as telling anybody what to do or
Mm-mm.
giving anybody advice, right? I'm not going to tell you, here's the
Mm-mm.
5 steps to get you exactly where you want to go. You
No,
have to
yeah.
be willing to put in the work. You have to be willing to share and
Yeah.
be open to that type of a conversation
Yeah.
in order for it to impact you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And anybody listening there, you're probably some of you may be nodding your head. Yeah, Angela and myself, we're not here to tell you anything. Telling doesn't work. And
Mm-mm.
whoever has children, there's your proof, right?
You
There's a
know.
great this when you said that, I read from my coaching certification way back in 2007, a book by James Flaherty. It's and I just popped
Mm,
in Evoking Excellence in Others. It's a brilliant book on coaching. And he said coaching is not telling, it's allowing someone to observe their behavior in light of
mhm.
their intentions. So what you
Ooh,
said, what's your intention? What do you want to create in your life? And now let's look at your behavior. And then what you got to understand, your behavior and your action. Then you got to understand the ancestor of every action is a thought, right? So what are you thinking? And that gets all back. It's like psychology 101, you know?
yeah.
And
But we get so
yeah,
stuck. We get stuck in our beliefs. We get stuck in our that autopilot and the activity. Oh, I'm so busy. How could I possibly make a change? It's like, but that
that's
activity
right.
isn't getting you anywhere. And
Yeah,
I think that
yeah,
so frequently people deny themselves the belief that something new is possible. And that's
right.
where that defensiveness, I think, comes in that you were talking about. They're just not
Yeah,
allowing themselves to believe that maybe things could be different because it feels scary.
yeah. I know. And in my perspective, I'll often ask people, when we talk about having a radical reverence for your life, this beautiful journey of life is not guaranteed. And
Yeah.
some people go, well, that's sad. I don't want to think about dying. And I'm like, but if you contemplate your mortality and the fragile nature of life,
Hmm.
you may then move through the fear and take one of those risks that in all likelihood is probably going to pay off for you. You know
Right,
what I mean? So
right.
I encourage people to think about that as well.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
because not everyone is going to have the story that you have, right? We can't
right,
all wait for some, massive life-threatening thing to happen. I mean, none of us want that, right? I mean, that's
right.
terrifying. It's unimaginable. And
Hmm.
there's still possibility to change your life. And sometimes contemplating something that seems unimaginable and understanding the
Hmm.
brevity of it all
Yeah.
can really help people to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. A lot of times people, they think they need that one big event,
Hmm.
some tragedy, some trauma, some catastrophe. I got laid off, because how many times have people got laid off, let go, and they then create a really cool thing? Our oldest son, Luke's in the middle of that. He lost his job back in March, blindsided after tremendous performance reviews.
Oh,
And
wow.
he went into a little bit of a funk, and now he's on the upswing. He's in a new industry and a great job, and he's
Awesome.
rocking and rolling. So he's looking back and going, "Wow, that was as much as that sucked, probably a good
Yes.
thing because my future is going to be a whole lot brighter." So
Yeah.
anybody listening, don't wait for that, right? Listen to Angela and
Yes.
just realize that you have the ability to kind of move off. I remember one time too, I heard about a woman, she wanted to go back to law school. She'd always thought about being a lawyer and she raised her kids and she worked a job and everything else. And she said to her friend though, but if I go to law school now, when I graduate, I'll be 55. And her friend said, well, how old will you be in 3 years if you don't go to law school? And the woman's like, I'll still be 55. So it was just kind of that reframe.
Yes. I
You know,
love
that,
that.
that that's cool. That is cool. What else should any of the listeners be thinking about right now? I mean, what's really important for you
Yeah.
in
I
creating
mean,
fulfillment in life?
yeah. Honestly, going off of what we were just talking about, I am an example of someone who hasn't had that life altering, life changing moment necessarily.
Hmm.
I think my life, like everyone's, has been a series of choices and moments, and they've built to this point. And I have just found a way to make really intentional decisions for my life through a filter that I created, right? I
Yeah.
created the filter that I look through, which is, my values and my goals and what matters to me in life. And
Hmm.
everyone has the opportunity to do that. And I think
Hmm.
an opportunity with that is also kind of rooted in connection. I think right
Hmm.
now, especially with AI, and I have I use AI myself for productivity and different things for sure. But I think a
Right.
lot of people are kind of even outsourcing their connection to AI right now. And I do think just saying out loud to a person who can reflect back to you, whether it's a friend, whether it's a coach like one of us, a therapist, depending on your situation, but just saying what you need to say or what's been kind of rolling around in your mind and being able to, bounce that off of someone and get that part out of the way to say that out loud.
Right.
That could be the thing that changes your life. That could be that impactful moment.
Right.
So,
Right.
I want everyone to know that, like I said, I think my story is fairly relatable. You know, you
Hmm.
can make decisions in your life. You can decide, and that's really where the power is deciding which direction to go, what filter you're going to look through in order to make those decisions. Because I think people
Hmm.
tend to spiral around decision
Yeah.
making all the time and get
Yeah.
stuck.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think that's really important for somebody to seek support and just talk about it and just say,
Yeah.
hey, here's what's on my mind. Here's what's on my heart. I think I need a change. I know it's going to impact me financially and just talk about it. Like you said, because the creation process, right? The ability to create is to bring into existence. The ability to bring in to existence something that's not here for you right now very rarely happens by yourself.
Hmm.
Everything, you make a great point. Just about everything valuable to us happens in connection,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
even people go, well, what about meditation and stillness? I'm like, yeah, you're connecting with your spirit, which is still connection,
It's still
So I
connection.
think, yeah, I think that's great. I know you do some keynotes as well as some coaching and all. So before we kind of wrap up and I
Yeah.
ask you to kind of just wrap our conversation up to somebody that's kind of on the proverbial fence right now and give them some
Mhm.
good tangible takeaways.
Yeah.
Um, where would people go to kind of find out more about you and connect with you and those kinds of things?
Yeah. Yes. You can go to my website, which is www.work-of-life.com. You
Hmm.
can find me and connect with me there. Also on Instagram and LinkedIn. I definitely post and connect directly
Hmm.
with folks on there as well.
Okay, that sounds great. So anybody out there looking for a keynote around this whole
Yeah.
concept of work-life balance, which we now will call fulfillment, go find Angela, or maybe you might need a little bit of coaching or whatever. So Angela, I've certainly enjoyed it. We've just connected recently from our friends James and Tracy down there in North Carolina,
Yes.
so I'm thankful for them. If
Good.
somebody's listening now and they go, you know what, man, that was good. I listened to Danny and he had this great lady on, Angela, and I got to make a change, man. Give them like two or three tangible steps.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the time, as I mentioned, people are spiraling around decisions because they're
Hmm.
focused on the decisions, on the options themselves.
Hmm.
The number one thing I would tell someone is to stop focusing on the decision itself.
Hmm.
Take a step back, right? A lot of times we're like looking here, we're looking there, we're looking here, we're looking there. Take a step back and
Hmm.
do the work to create that lens, right?
Hmm.
Because when you understand where you're headed,
Right.
the decision becomes easy. Because if you're
Hmm.
like, well, this is my goal and here's where I'm headed, which one of those things gets me there? But if you're
Hmm.
just focused on the decision making and
Right.
the spiraling around your options, that's where people tend to get stuck. So if you're at a crossroads or you're trying to make a decision and you don't know what to do next, or you're feeling stuck,
Yeah.
forget the decision, forget the
Right.
decision altogether,
Right.
and really work to create that filter.
Yeah.
And then the other piece that I think is tangible, this is a mindset shift that I had a long time ago that has really made a difference for me, is
Hmm.
reminding myself you don't have to. So
Hmm.
anytime I'm like, oh, well, I have to do this for work or I have to go do that, you actually don't.
Hmm.
Could there be consequences if you don't do that thing? Sure. And you
Sure.
have to weigh those consequences. But I think people get really stuck in the have tos and the shoulds of life. So just
Right.
telling yourself, I don't have to go to work today. I'm going to
Right.
choose to go to work today and I'm going to bring my
Hmm.
best self. That shift in your mindset can really unlock something.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's great. And just a couple other things we talked about is to make sure you have conversations with somebody about it.
Yeah.
Think
Yeah.
about what your values are right now. And then
Hmm.
something we didn't talk about, but I'll just remember and encourage people, think about another past time in life when you were not satisfied and you made a change and you moved through it.
Yes.
Sometimes we got to build on our past successes. So I would
That's such a
encourage
good point.
everybody
Yeah.
to think
Remember how
about,
capable you are. You've
oh
probably done
gosh,
it
yeah.
before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely they can. So, Angela, listen, thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to staying connected with you and everybody out there. I appreciate you joining. take some actions away from my conversation with Angela today. And just always remember that each day when you come back to life, it's a choice. There's a hell of a difference between just living and going through the motions and being fully alive. So until next time, enjoy this beautiful journey called life.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the Back to Life podcast with your friends. And don't forget to join us in the next episode.